makes their own decisions and everybody makes their own choices, but they're not the only ones that suffer the consequences. Everyone around them does.
Welcome down the rabbit hole, friends. I'm getting ready to take you on a ride down a slippery slope with me, and I mean that both figuratively and literally, because the prologue is actually called The Sled, in Jill Duggar's new book, Counting the Cost.
Our jurisdictions are our chores. We have to clean, we have certain places, like I do the laundry.
I've only read the very beginning of this book, but what I'm hearing from people that I really trust is that things get even crazier chapter after chapter. We have so much to talk about here, and I don't know if I've just been really naive, but I wasn't expecting Jill to spill so much tea about what went on behind the scenes in her life. I'm really proud of Jill for speaking out. I hope you are too. And I hope many of you have purchased the book or plan to go to Amazon and purchase it. But I want to let you know that I'm going to be doing a giveaway here on my channel. If you comment under this video the words "Go Jill," you will be entered into my giveaway. If you win the giveaway, I will go ahead and send you via your email address an Amazon gift card for the cost of the book, which you can either use to purchase the book or do something else. But I hope whatever you do, it goes towards supporting Jill and Derek, because I'm really proud of them. And I want them to know that they have a lot of people backing them right now. All right, so let's get into it by discussing the prologue, which knocked me off my feet right from the start. I haven't spoken much about why I ended up going down the Josh Duggar rabbit hole, other than to say I did work in a child offender facility for several years as a nurse. I even worked night shift most of the time, where I was the only nurse on duty. I learned so much there, specifically about children who participate in crimes where S offenses happen. I also learned a lot about the victims who would often come to the facility to have counseling because it may have been a sibling that was victimized in a lot of these situations. I've spoken out about it before, so I'm not going to say too much here, but I want to talk about the second reason why I have always found the Duggar family and the IBLP to be so fascinating and something that I felt I needed to learn more about. It has to do with some members of my family, and specifically a cousin who was around my age. We'll call her Julia. She was an amazing person, and I loved her very much growing up, and she and her family were members of the IBLP. Julia was such a lovely, innocent person, kind of like a bright, shining star. Whenever I saw her, I thought about just how sweet, kind, and innocent she was. I loved to play with her, actually. We saw each other very rarely because my family, I was raised by my grandparents from the other side of the family. They thought my cousin's family was kind of crazy. So I saw them very infrequently. And I got the feeling when I was around them that the parents were very concerned about how I may influence their daughter. But I really enjoyed being around her. And she did dress very much like the Duggars did in the beginning of 19 Kids and Counting. She seemed very lonely because she was homeschooled her entire life. And she seemed to be carrying a burden of a lot of shame a lot of strict rules. Sometimes I just felt like she was very hungry because they didn't have a lot of money. They didn't have much in their home. They were renting like a couple of rooms in a house. And yet, she still loved to go outside and play and like catch butterflies with me. She wanted to do like the most simplistic things. She loved to be outside, and she even showed me how to play like an organ once, because for some reason they had an organ in their house. And I always wondered about her. Growing up, as I moved on and went to college, I thought about her a lot, worried about her, and wondered what was going to happen to her. There's more to the story, and that's something I can tell another time. But for now, I want to take a look at Jill's book, and let's see what she has to say about her experience and her family as part of the IBLP.
You publicly defended Josh, and then this breaks. Were you like, how could you do this to Jess and I?
All right, guys, some of this is going to be hard, but we're going to get through it because Jill lived through it. So I want to know all about it, and I want to stand with her and be with her through the experiences that she's going to tell us about in this book. So the prologue is called The Sled, and it starts on February 2nd, 2014 at the Big House in Tawnytown, Arkansas. Okay, all of the kids are outside, Jill included, and guess what? She and Derek have become engaged. I mean, we all know the story that Derek got friendly with Jim Bob Duggar through prayer and kind of looked at him as a little bit of a father figure in certain ways from what we saw on the show, never fully replacing, but stepping in after Derek's father had passed away after a battle with cancer. So Derek was close to Jim Bob and likely Michelle as well. Here we have Jill. She's the first daughter to get engaged, and a lot of it is playing out on screen for us to watch. I don't think that this actual situation was on the show, although I do remember seeing Derek and Jill in the snow together, so possibly some of it could have been filmed.
Coming up on 19 Kids and Counting.
In less than 36 hours, I'm going to be marrying Derek Dillard.
I'm looking forward to having the sweetest girl in the world.
Stealing his last name.
In this prologue, Jill and Derek are outside at the Big House with the little kids. Many of her siblings are around, and they are playing in the snow together, as two engaged people should be allowed to do happily. Very innocent, wonderful times that they can make good memories. But for Jill, it was all about following all the strict courtship rules.
Giving away my first daughter to get married, it really is a tearjerking situation. Tomorrow, after you get married, you may kiss the bride.
She writes here, no holding hands, no in-person one-on-one conversations without an adult or a mature chaperone present, no putting ourselves in a position where we would fall into temptation. And she thought everything was going to be okay because there were people all around them watching, they were engaged, and she felt that she was in a situation that was innocent enough for even her family. But I guess we're about to find out, even playing in the snow can ruffle the feathers of Michelle Duggar.
It's great to have so many witnesses for our first kiss.
No practice?
Yeah.
Jill and Derek were taking innocent sled rides down the hill, and Jill writes that they were trading stories back and forth. Derek just wanted to talk to Jill about a new job he was planning to take. I mean, that's going to affect her and her future and their time together, so they're sharing information about what is upcoming in both of their lives. At the time, Jill was working as a student midwife, and she wanted to tell Derek all about that again, just sharing, who she is and what's going on so that they can plan their lives together. Jill writes that it just wasn't something that anyone else would hang back from doing when they're already thinking about getting engaged, getting married, and they're actually thinking about going out to look at a venue for the wedding together. But all of a sudden, down from the Big House, they hear a call, and Jill was immediately at attention when she heard, "Hey kids!" The snow was soaking up the sound, Jill writes, and it felt like the whole world was listening. When I turned to see her standing on the front porch, my stomach dropped.
Nervous?
Yeah, really nervous. Like, this is actually happening. This is the moment that we've all been waiting for.
We have a young woman, an adult, who's ready to be married and move on in her life, who is completely frightened and terrified so much that she gets anxiety in her stomach when she hears her mom call down from the big house. Jill actually writes, "She was smiling, that same smile the world has seen for years, a smile that's pure innocence, but protects like a shield." And her voice was so full of sweetness and joy, but I knew that voice well. At that point in my life, I'd been obeying it for 20 years, and I knew what was coming next. The reason I feel so surprised by the story with which Jill is opening up this entire book is I think it's really putting out there that even Michelle Duggar is not who she seems. The seemingly more innocent person who I've been hesitant to judge, assuming that this is just a mother who fully loves her children and gets kind of annoyed with Jim Bob's rules and issues. Jill is letting us know she's fully in on this. So much so that her adult daughter is afraid when her voice calls out in the middle of a snowstorm. She knows she better get the heck up, get off that sled, and respond to whatever Michelle's unhappy about.
All right, well, no more chaperones after today. Y'all probably just be joined at the mouth.
Is some kind of perverted assumption that Jill and Derek spending time on a sled together will lead to impure thoughts and then, I guess, therefore, impure actions, even though there are children all around them at the time. Michelle literally called out, "No boys and girls on the same sled." "Yes, ma'am," I said, jumping off the sled immediately. But here's the thing. Jill's getting a taste of what life may start to become after she marries Derek because Derek seems confused. Jill knows immediately she's made a big mistake and it's time to hop to attention and obey, but Derek doesn't really get that. He stays on the ground on the sled and starts looking around like, no boys and girls on sleds together? Who? You've got some little kids on sleds together that you're worried about being improper? How can I help? I mean, what's going on? And then it hits him. She's talking about him.
If you invest in your daughter, and then one day you give her away. It's kind of a happy and sad time, and I just can't put it into words.
20-something-year-old Derek, who's gone to college, lived away on mission, and Jill, who's ready to marry Derek and take him as her husband, are not allowed to so much as be close to each other, are not allowed to go down the hill on the same sled together. Jill writes, Derek's face shifted from curiosity to something like bewilderment. He turned back to the big house and called out, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Duggar," and got to his feet. And Jill's response is that she's so grateful he didn't say anything and that he got up off the sled quickly so there wouldn't be so many eyes on her because she wanted to make sure that everyone knew she wasn't being disobedient. "I'm sorry," I said quietly to him. "I should have known better." Wow. I don't know if I'm making too much of it, but this wasn't what I was expecting to hear about Michelle. I think it's really opening us up to understanding that Jill is ready to talk about what went on in her family that she's realized is just abnormal. It's not what everyone else goes through. It's related to her parents' dedication to the IBLP, and she's starting off with even calling out her mom and saying this wasn't a standard mother-daughter relationship. For the rest of the prologue, Jill lets us know that there were many times in her life growing up she felt like an outsider who didn't understand what was going on, that other people seemed confused about things that were just normal and natural for her in her everyday life. She talks about going to the ocean or being in just a regular department store and how she would see a look of bewilderment in people's eyes, much like she saw that look of bewilderment in Derek's eyes when Michelle yelled at him for sitting on a sled with his soon-to-be wife. Jill says for a long time she didn't pay attention. She learned to shut out the people who gave her odd looks. She brushed it off or told herself that people's confusion was just because they weren't living as pure of a life as the Duggar family, who had been blessed by God with a wonderful opportunity to show the world the right way to live. Jill says at that time in the snow, when they were on the sled, Jill couldn't see her life from an outsider's perspective, but it wouldn't stay that way. She writes, "Soon the bewilderment would be mine." And we've got a nice picture of Jill and Derek together in the snow, just hanging out, doing very innocent, loving, wonderful things. And that's the prologue to Jill's book. Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal to me. I wasn't expecting to hear any of that about Michelle, and I really, maybe I'm reading too much between the lines, but I feel like she's saying that every person in this family is guilty of carrying out the strict law that the IBLP presented to them, and her mother is no exception. The next chapter, chapter 1, is entitled Sweet Jilly Muffin, and I'll be going over it tomorrow. Not to worry, we will still be continuing with our Kate Gosselin series. I hope to pick that up tomorrow or the next day. Thanks to all of you who have been patiently waiting for it. Remember to comment below, Go Jill, if you want to be enrolled in the drawing to receive a gift card from me so you can purchase her book or something else on Amazon. I am really looking forward to going down this rabbit hole with you. So I plan to go live throughout the week so we can talk back and forth more about this. I want to hear what you have to say. Maybe some of you aren't shocked or surprised by this at all, and I'd like to hear that. So drop a comment below if you can, and please do whatever you can to support Jill. Go to her Instagram, let her know that you care about them and you support her family, and we are excited that she has released her book. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight. I hope that you'll join me again tomorrow as we head down yet another rabbit hole.